There are so many bowling balls being released every single year that you need some deep pockets if you want to buy them all. But then again, the last 2 years, there's been over 100 balls released in the US in a year, so it's basically impossible to keep up with them all. For us consumers, having that many balls released creates a lot of pros and cons, and I'm going to discuss those in this video. We all love shiny new bowling balls, but in 2025 so far, I've counted approximately 97 balls released so far, and I'm sure we'll get a few more announced just before the end of the year to take us over the 100 mark. This trend of releasing so many balls per year is still a fairly recent one, and I think it's ultimately come down to the fact that for the ball companies, it's better to produce lower quantities of a ball but release balls frequently than it is to put everything into just 1 or 2 releases a year. Because nobody can ever tell with certainty if a ball will be popular. Companies know that certain lines will always sell well, but definitely when trying something new, it can be a big risk. If you are only releasing a small amount of balls in a year, suddenly everything rides on the success of that ball because the chances are they've produced a large quantity, and if it doesn't sell, they're stuck with it. It's a much safer strategy to produce less but release often because it reduces the risk. This also means that balls get discontinued quicker, with the rule of thumb being around a year. If a ball isn't selling enough, then typically after a year, it will be taken off the market, but we'll discuss that more later. So let's start by taking a look at the pros and cons of having all of these releases each year. First up, we'll talk about the pros, and it's choice. As consumers, it is nice to have choice. It is nice to have so many balls to pick from and so many more that are always in the pipeline and being announced every couple of months. Plus, all the brands tend to have a very similar release schedule in terms of what they release and the types of balls they release. So it doesn't matter what brand you throw, you're going to have a very, very good choice of balls to pick from. Another pro is that we get different versions of balls pretty consistently now. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say you have a solid ball that's released and it does well and it's popular. You can be pretty sure they will bring out a maybe hybrid and a pearl version as well. They normally tend to come in 3s when a ball does well. And that's great news if you have a ball that you love, because you know the chances are there's going to be another version of that ball coming pretty soon. And it wasn't always the case. When we look back to the Virtual Gravity, that was released back in 2008. Now, it wasn't until 2011 that we got the Virtual Gravity Nano. Now, instead of waiting a couple of years for the next edition of a ball, it seems to come within a matter of months. It can be almost as little as 4 months before the next ball was released, it being worked on, and then suddenly you've got 3 of those editions. I mean, look at something like the Ion or the Effect balls, the Ethos line as well. There's so many different examples because basically all of the companies are now doing this. But again, as consumers, I think that definitely is a good thing. Another pro is that you can actually pick up some very good deals, because although we have a lot of balls being released and although they are getting discontinued fairly quickly now, what that means is that if you wait a little while and you don't get it when it gets released, the chances are the price is going to drop because more balls are coming out all the time. Then maybe after 1 year it even gets discontinued. So if you didn't have the chance to pick it up, you're basically always going to have the opportunity to pick up that ball at a very, very good price. When buying a new ball, it doesn't have a life shelf. You can pick up a ball at release date or you can pick it up 2 years afterwards. It doesn't really matter. So from that point of view, you can get some very good deals if you don't mind waiting a few months to get your hands on the ball. Those, I think, are some of the main pros to having all of these releases. But let's look at some of the cons. First of all, it's very easy to miss great balls. When you've got 100 plus bowling balls on the market each year, you can't buy them all unless you're on staff, or you're getting these balls because you're a staff player. If you're just an average league bowler or a tournament bowler and you're funding things yourselves, there's a limit to how many bowling balls, first of all, how many you can afford to buy, but second of all, how many you actually need, because clearly nobody needs 100 balls. Nobody needs 50 balls a year. You know, you just don't need that many balls. Now I'm talking about once you've got your arsenal built up, and then you can kind of start to fill in gaps and make replacements, but you don't need to go and buy every single release. I think that much is obvious. So what that means is it's very easy to miss out on some really great bowling balls. Not only have you got so many coming out, the ball companies are doing a very good job of producing balls that people want. You've got some of those balls, as I mentioned earlier, that have been really popular, like the Ion series or the Effector, and then when you see a new one coming out, you really want that. You've got as well old balls that are being reproduced as well and brought back into the market, being updated. So there's so much going on that it's so easy to miss out. You basically have to make a choice between 20 balls at a time, and the chances are you're probably only looking to get 1 or 2 at a time over every maybe few months. And when they're getting discontinued quite quickly, it's so easy to miss out on a ball if it's only going to be on the market for around a year. And that brings us on to con number 2, where it's just overwhelming. I feel like now a lot of bowlers don't even know what to buy. There's so many different bowling balls out there that all do similar things, if we're honest. Not in every case, but a lot of the time across the brands, you know, when you're looking at these high performance balls, there's a limit to what it can do with technology that's available right now. You also have so many guys on YouTube, a little bit like myself, I suppose, who are mainly what they do is just ball reviews. Now, some of those channels are great because they're impartial, and some of them are also great, but they're not impartial. They're working for the brands, so it becomes a little bit harder to tell when they're giving you that advice. Is that genuine advice, or are they just saying, hey, this is a great ball because they're working with the ball company? So you have this kind of issue where the whole marketplace is swamped with ball releases. The whole marketplace in terms of the ball review scene is swamped because you've got so many balls coming out. You've got so many guys reviewing balls as well that it just becomes so overwhelming, and there's too many options. You don't know where to turn. You don't quite know who to listen to. And most importantly, you don't know what a ball's going to do until you drill it up and throw it yourself. Because all the best marketing in the world, you know, and a ball could be the best ball out there, but it might not be right for your game. And I think that is probably the biggest issue, is that the market feels oversaturated simply because all of these balls, they do a lot of similar things. And yeah, it's just so hard to know what ball to pick because there are just too many options, and sometimes too many options can be a curse and it can just leave you not knowing what to do. And I think the last point I will mention is I do feel we're lacking in a little bit of diversity. And what do I mean by that? Well, as I said, the ball companies have got into this certain rhythm of releasing certain types of balls and then releasing multiple versions of those balls. I'm going to give you an example here. The Storm Level. Now, you could say the Storm Level was quite a risky move. Storm tried to do something different. They tried to sort of hop onto the urethane craze to create something that bowlers would like that wasn't urethane. But if we're honest, I think the Level was actually quite a bit of a failure. I haven't really come across too many people who really liked that ball. Not saying it's a bad ball, but I think for whatever reason, it just didn't quite hit the mark. And that's what I said earlier. That's a risk that you always have when you release a ball. You don't know how it's going to go down with the bowling community. It doesn't really matter what that ball is like, whether it's a good ball or a bad ball. That's not particularly relevant. What is relevant is whether that ball strikes a chord, and a lot of that has to do with timing and all the other releases as well that come out. It's just a case of what the bowlers need at that particular moment in time. I mean, look, I personally don't mind that these ball companies are releasing all of these balls because it's actually quite nice to sort of see what they're going to come up with next. And I'd rather have more balls available than not. But I think the biggest thing is that people can't keep up. you've just got your head around some new releases that have come out, and it's like before you've even had a chance to buy the ball, then the other companies are releasing more balls, and then you go back to Storm and you still haven't bought that previous ball, and then suddenly they've come out with something else, and then your attention gets diverted elsewhere. And I just think the biggest shame of it all is that a lot of these balls are good balls, but they are just being left behind because there is just too much out there. But as always, I would love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about this very intense release schedule that we've seen over the last few years? Do you like it? Do you feel like you're missing out on too many releases? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as well as some of the pros as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you have enjoyed what you've seen here today, I'd really appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button below. Well, that's going to do it from me for today. And as always, thank you, bowling fans, and see you all next time.